There's a Back to the Future detail so easy to miss, you may never notice what it means. At first, this mall is called Twin Pines. When Marty returns from 1955, it's suddenly called Lone Pine. And the reason comes from one tiny mistake he makes in the past. The movie never stops to explain the change. When Back to the Future begins, Marty McFly meets Doc Brown at Twin Pines Mall. Doc unveils his DeLorean time machine and demonstrates that it can actually travel through time. The experiment goes wrong when armed Libyan terrorists arrive at the mall. Marty escapes in the DeLorean and accidentally travels back to 1955. 1955 matters because that's where Marty first starts changing the future. Doc later explains that the land around the mall once belonged to a farmer named Old Man Peabody. Peabody had an unusual idea. He wanted to breed pine trees on his land. When Marty arrives in 1955, he doesn't understand the significance of that land yet. He's simply trying to figure out where he is. Then he sees the farmhouse, and that's when his first major mistake happens. Marty drives the DeLorean through the property while trying to escape. In the process, he knocks down one of Peabody's 2 pine trees. But notice what Marty actually knows in that moment. He doesn't know he's standing on land that will matter decades later. He doesn't know the 2 pine trees will become part of a mall's name, and he certainly doesn't know one of them is about to disappear. To Marty, the tree is just an obstacle. He's panicking, he's trying to escape, and he's desperate to understand where he is. The audience sees something different. We know this mistake happens before Marty even understands the rules of time travel. That's what makes the moment so easy to miss. Nothing about it looks important when it happens. There's no close-up announcing the tree's importance. Marty doesn't stop and stare at it. He simply keeps moving. But the movie has already planted the information you need. You know the mall is called Twin Pines. You know Peabody owns the land. And now you've watched Marty destroy one of those pines. One tree. That's the entire joke. And decades later, that missing tree changes the mall's name. In 1985, the mall is called Twin Pines Mall. The name connects directly to the 2 pine trees growing on Peabody's land. The movie doesn't stop to explain this. Nobody announces that Marty has changed the future. The story simply moves on. But when Marty finally gets back to 1985, the movie gives you the answer without saying a word. And the filmmakers give you another clue later. After Marty finally manages to return to 1985, he goes back to the same mall. But something feels different. The location looks familiar. Everything looks familiar. Except for one word. It isn't Twin Pines Mall anymore. It's Lone Pine Mall. One of the 2 pines is gone. That tiny sign is proof that Marty didn't return to exactly the same 1985. Marty didn't just visit the past. He altered the timeline. And the change isn't random. It follows a cause and effect chain that began several decades earlier. Peabody's 2 trees existed in 1955. Marty destroys one. The film ties Peabody's land to the mall's history. In the altered 1985, the mall is called Lone Pine Mall. You saw Twin Pines before Marty left. You see Lone Pine after he returns. And this is where the detail becomes more than a simple joke. The movie gives you a before and after comparison without changing the location. You don't need a new building. You don't need a new street. You don't even need a new scene. You only need the sign to change. That's unusually efficient storytelling. One word tells you that the world has changed. And because you saw the original version earlier, you can recognize the difference instantly. The movie trusts you to remember what you saw. It doesn't repeat the explanation. It doesn't stop Marty to explain the consequences. It simply puts the altered version in front of you. That's why this works better than a long explanation ever could. Before Marty changes history, it's Twin Pines. After Marty changes history, it's Lone Pine. The difference is only one word. That's why the sign becomes more interesting on a rewatch. The first time, you're watching Marty survive 1955. On the second viewing, you already know what that tree will cost him. But here's the bigger question. Why does the movie make this change so easy to miss? Because the answer is sitting in plain sight. Marty isn't trying to change the mall. He's trying to survive. He's trying to get away from the farm. He hits one tree. That's it. But decades later, that one action is still visible in 1985. Instead of explaining the timeline change, the movie lets one sign prove it. And the mall sign isn't the only time the movie uses physical evidence to show history changing. Marty's family photograph changes. The newspaper changes. His family's future starts changing around him. The movie keeps turning abstract time travel into something you can actually see. That's important because time itself isn't visible. You can't look at a clock and see history changing underneath Marty. So the movie gives the audience objects instead. A photograph, a newspaper, a name on a building. Each object becomes a piece of evidence. And the mall sign may be the smallest one of all. That's why it can disappear into the background so easily. Nothing dramatic happens when the name changes. But the idea behind it is enormous. Marty's actions in 1955 aren't staying in 1955. They're reaching all the way forward into the world he wants to return to. For a movie built around time machines and alternate futures, the evidence is surprisingly ordinary. A tree, a sign, one changed word. That's all it takes. And there's an important difference between this and a random Easter egg. A random Easter egg can sit in the background without affecting the story. This detail actually reflects something Marty did. The tree isn't just decoration. The changed mall name isn't just decoration either. They're connected by an action we watched happen earlier. That's what gives the detail its payoff. You aren't being asked to memorize a production fact. You're being shown a consequence. Marty changes something in 1955. The audience later sees evidence of that change in 1985. The movie connects those two moments without stopping the story. And that connection is exactly what makes the detail worth noticing. But there's another detail behind that sign. Puente Hills Mall in City of Industry was used for the Twin Pines, Lone Pine Mall exterior scenes. That same real-world location represents both versions of the mall. Think about how clever that makes the visual change. The audience isn't looking at two completely different places. You're looking at the same recognizable environment. What changes is the story attached to it. The parking lot still feels like the same place. The surrounding location still feels familiar. But that single word tells you that Marty's reality isn't identical anymore. That's a perfect fit for a movie about cause and effect. The world doesn't need to look completely different. And that's really the heart of Back to the Future. Even tiny actions can follow you forward. Marty isn't trying to change the mall when he hits that tree. But decades later, the consequence is still sitting on that sign. That's what makes the detail more than a joke. It's a visible record of something Marty did in 1955. So the next time you watch Back to the Future, watch the mall sign. Don't just look for the DeLorean. Look for the trees. Once you spot the trees, you'll know exactly why that one word changed. Want another deep dive into a classic movie? Check out our most loved versus most hated characters in Caddyshack video next. The link is in the description and on the end screen. And subscribe if you want more hidden movie details like this every week.